I have a very special interview today. It is with Philip Proudfoot, leader and founder of the Northern Independence Party. Now, you cannot have missed this on social media because at the moment, the Northern Independence Party's official Twitter account has been locked by Twitter for sharing stuff about the vaccine, which they really shouldn't be sharing. Obviously, it's about vaccine mandates and the rollout of the vaccine and patents. Bizarre, it seems, but clearly there's a lot more going on here than expected. So, Philip, thank you for joining me on this. Good to meet you, actually.
Pleasure to be here. Nice to meet you.
So, Twitter has locked, I mean, it's wonderful headlines, really. Twitter has locked the account of a registered political party for saying that you oppose patents on vaccines given the new variant of the coronavirus that has emerged. I mean, just tell for the viewers at home, just give us a bit of the backstory to this to start with, and then we'll try and delve into maybe trying to work out what the hell Twitter's been up to.
So, on the 20th of November at around 2 a.m., I think I received a frantic call from our political advisor saying that our account had been locked. And I actually woke up on the 20th of November, which also happened to be my birthday, to find that our account had
I saw you. You were in a
locked.
pub trying to get.
I was in a pub
Twitter
trying to get
unlocked.
the account. Trying to get it unlocked. And I looked at the tweet, and it was a tweet where we called for the patents to be removed on the COVID-19 vaccine. And I think that Joe Biden said the same thing on the same day. So to be charitable and fair to Twitter, the assumption that we have to make, the fair assumption, I think, is that there's some sort of algorithm or AI system that potentially looked at our name free, had free in it. Maybe it made them think about vaccine skeptics or COVID skeptics. And then something about wake up world, unlock the patent or something like this. And this triggered the algorithm, which then automatically locks the account. And then Twitter gives you the option of saying, okay, I accept that I shouldn't be tweeting COVID misinformation, give me a 12-hour ban. And then it puts a strike against your account on misinformation. So it potentially leads to future tweets being registered as misinformation, or it potentially blocks you getting verified, which for us is a whole other story. And the effect of it, and then your other option is to say, no, this has to go to appeal, and then you're just waiting for someone to actually read it. So that's the charitable reading, is that there wasn't a person on the other end. This was an automated process. But that's not without problems. That means essentially that an American tech firm's automated intelligence algorithm has essentially, by effect, if not by intention, censored a registered UK political party. And in the eyes of UK law, we are no different, as I keep saying, from Labour or the Tories. We are registered with the Electoral Commission. We have a legally binding constitutional agreement amongst our members. We have the same roles and responsibilities and rights as any other political party. Yet we've been effectively, in essence, censored. And I just say, you maybe don't agree with us about Northern separatism or whatever. You've got to at least agree on some level that this is quite worrying that this can happen to a political party in the UK that has stood in elections. I mean, it's very strange.
As we're recording this around tea time on Tuesday, the 30th of November, so 2 days after your account was locked, it's still not resolved, is it?
Yeah, it's still not resolved. And I just say, if you imagine this had happened to Labour or the Tories, there would be mass coverage of this. And, people might say, oh, well, it's a private US-based tech company. Well, it's social media, right? It's social media. We have regulators in the UK for privately owned newspapers. There are mechanisms of accountability in place for the legacy media, but for social media, what is the accountability system here? Who do we complain to? And this is at quite a vital time where we would like to be using our account to promote all sorts of content. Like, for instance, recently I've seen that there's a beautiful photo exhibition of life in LGBT clubs in the north of England in the 1990s. That's classic Northern Independence Party stuff. We would love to be sharing that to our members. And also at the same time, we've got a councillor in Manchester's just resigned because of the appalling racist treatment of her Labour Party colleagues. All of this is stuff that we normally would have a voice on, but we don't because Twitter has in effect taken it from us using this algorithm. Of course, there's, other than the charitable reading, there's also mechanisms through which these algorithms can be exploited by other actors. For instance, malicious reporting. So one possibility with the Navarra takedown, and from us to a certain degree, is that there's malicious reporting within WhatsApp groups that say everyone report this tweet, and then you can get that account taken down. And people might reply, well, why do you it's just Twitter. Twitter is not important. But Twitter is important, firstly, because we still live in a relatively lockdown world because of COVID. It's our main reach and main comms platform. It's how we drive engagement to our party. It's where our members organize. And it's how we also hold politicians to account. And I would say, if you look now at that, people often say, well, what is the effect of Twitter? What is the effect of the Northern Independence Party? We haven't really seen that much sort of patronizing images of the North anymore that the Labour Party were coming out with around Hartlepool. And I would argue to a certain degree our constant attention on the sort of flags and pints and nonsense from Keir Starmer might have actually pulled them back a little bit from doing that patronizing line about the North. So all of this tool, all this political capacity has been taken from us because of an algorithm from a US tech firm. It's bonkers.
It is when you put it. Sorry, I'm still smiling about Keir Starmer's pints and patriotism.
I do wonder whether it was just us constantly taking the piss out of it.
Do you know what I think? It's quite. There's a whole nother show in that.
Yeah,
actually, that's quite interesting because now you've said that, my mind's going. And there was a distinct shift in sort of Labour messaging as such, and it was around the time actually, not long after the Hartlepool election. Okay, we'll come back to that maybe at a later stage. It's a very, very interesting subject there. With regards to social media, is there anything, firstly, you personally or that the party would like to see change in terms of social media and the way that it's accountable for its actions?
I mean, personally, I do think that we on the left to a certain degree need to have a broader conversation about how reliant we are on these technology firms. I think that is a problem. And I think about the early internet, for instance, and when there was a huge amount of different web pages and different services, and that from GeoCities, Yahoo, there are all these multiple web pages we use. But now it just feels that the internet has actually been reduced to 3 or 4 web pages. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And that's placed increasing levels of control over smaller and smaller numbers of people. And I do think we should talk about more open source forms of social media. We should hopefully at some point look towards branching away from things like Twitter, given these issues. But also being realist, I just think that there needs to be some sort of regulatory framework. If you just describe that a registered UK political party has been locked because of an algorithm misreading a tweet, that says that there needs to be some sort of watchdog. We don't live in a country that is entirely ruled by corporations and companies. We're supposed to have some sort of political representation that moderates market forces, moderates what private firms can do. Yet this entire avenue is completely free from that. And I'm not one of these people who think that Twitter and Facebook are the reason why Brexit won or anything like that. I don't subscribe to that extreme level of social media influence, but it nonetheless is an essential tool through which we are able to hold politicians to account, which is often what I find that we're doing in NIP now more than a lot of, obviously not yourselves, but a lot of other journalists who are not doing a very good job of holding politicians to account. I look now and I see the comments under particular individuals' posts, and I think, well, they're doing the job of journalists now, because most mainstream journalists basically are, they just tweet out the lines that they're given by Downing Street or by the leaders of the opposition. So this tool should be protected and it should be cherished. And it is interesting to me how some of the biggest defenders I know of free speech and free opinion are now on the left. We're always seen as the censorious left, but I'm a free speech fundamentalist. I think that Twitter should be protected from all of this interference. we don't want to basically have a left version of find me on Parler. We don't want to have and that is the thing about what is in essence like platform capitalism, is that Twitter has produced we are the people who produce the content, and Twitter owns it. And but by gathering so many diverse voices together in one place, you have that opportunity to have these conversations. And you would not necessarily have that if we just had left-wing Twitter. It would also just not be as fun, because we wouldn't be able to do, for instance, the "this you" style tweet, because it's all of us. We're not going to have "this yous" all the time. We're not going to get to go through people's profiles and find where they're saying I've always supported Labour, and then you find them, attacking Magic Grandad in 2018. So.
Look,
So
yeah, come on, Philip. This is the left. Yeah. I'm sure if we did create our own platform, we'd all be stabbing each other in the back eventually. No, it's very true. And look, obviously, I'll be keeping an eye on the situation. I do hope this is resolved, but I don't want to spend our entire time talking about Twitter. Hopefully, that will clear itself up soon. I'll be very interested to see what Twitter says to us, the Canary, when we ask them what on earth is going on. But let's talk a bit about the Northern Independence Party. A lot of viewers will probably be aware of how you started up and why you started up, and the Hartlepool by-election and so on and so forth. But we were talking off air, and you said there's actually been a lot more work going on behind the scenes now. I'm interested. You've launched the process of starting branches of the Northern Independence Party. That's correct,
yeah.
How's that going?
It's good. We've got branches covering most areas of the north now. So this is really, the Northern Independence Party started under lockdown, so a lot of our members haven't actually met up in person. So now finally we're starting to get branches in all major urban centers and most regions across the north, and they're beginning to have in-person meetings, which is the process through which we begin, to select candidates. And we're trying to be as fundamentally democratic as possible, which means that the branches with the local knowledge will select the local candidates, which will then go on to run as our candidates for parliament or as our candidates in local elections. So we have really, really strong branch in, no surprises here, Liverpool. We have our strongest branch probably, and then Manchester, Newcastle, and then also spreading out across the north. We've got these branches emerging, and it's just great to see in-person meetings beginning to occur, because again, all the sort of, the Northern Independence Party only exists online. Well, yeah. We first of all, if it wasn't for the COVID transitions towards online technology, I don't think we actually would have been able to emerge as a political party. It's that instantaneous communication between people from Liverpool and Newcastle, where, let me remind everyone, it takes longer to get a train from Newcastle to Liverpool than it does Newcastle to London. If only there was a political party that centralized those issues. This has allowed us to actually unify and realize that the North faces very common challenges when it comes to Westminster. So it's just great to see branches and new volunteers taking active positions, because we do have a lot of members who haven't necessarily even been that politically engaged historically, but the branch structure, it allows a way into becoming politically active.
That's fascinating, because there's this I've seen this trope before about Northern Independence Party. It's just disgruntled Labour supporters, etc., etc. And clearly that's not the case. That's really good.
Yeah. No, I know. And the other thing that's interesting is is lots of people like to remind me I'm not the first person to talk about these things. There is actually a kind of long-standing, so not necessarily separatist Northern tradition, but there's lots of bodies and individuals who've been fighting for devolution and trying to break hypercentralization in the UK for a long time, because of course we do live in by far and away the most centralized country in all of Europe. So I'm not the first. There are even some Labour MPs who've been working on this for a long time, like John Trickett and Ian Lavery, but nonetheless, through the demand we're making, it's sort of the demand for independence is so exciting that it is attracting people who previously never engaged in party political forms before. So it is great. Yeah, there are of course disgruntled Labour people, but there are also just previously not. I'm a disgruntled Labour person. I'm proud. I was in the Labour Party under Corbyn. I joined under Corbyn. I left when Corbyn was kicked out. That's my position. I'm a democratic socialist. I will only be in a party if it is democratic socialist. But there were plenty of people in our party who aren't like that, and it's their first time. Yeah.
I think that's great. That's excellent. And you've also been doing some sort of work on internal structures as well, haven't you?
Yeah, the major reason. So after Hartlepool, which we used as a we used that by-election as a publicity stunt, and we gained so many more members. Like we trained ourselves on how to run an election through practical experience. So it was many people, again, first time like actually doing an election, like doing canvassing, getting all of the various bureaucratic things in place that you need to even go canvassing, all this stuff. It was a training exercise. It also gained us thousands of members. But then suddenly we were like, damn, we've got thousands of members, no real internal party structure that embeds democracy. So then we've basically been looking internally and setting up, the constitution, how the NEC functions. We had a full NEC election, which was independently monitored by a third party, like a proper, serious process and all of this. So we've been doing all of that kind of stuff. And then, there's so many technical questions when you set up a party. It's not easy, right? It's like, how do the branches relate to the central executive? And you can say, oh, that's boring. Let's not do that boring work. Let's just
chat on WhatsApp.
let's just chat on WhatsApp. But if you don't put it down, like the point about having structures, democratic structures, is that when there are disagreements, you can just refer to a document that everyone has signed off on, and then you can resolve that disagreement. Otherwise, you just open yourselves up to like just a bad environment. And we don't want to make the mistakes of the Labour Party. A party to be successful has to be democratic. So it has to be embedded within the party. And that's what we've been working on. And we've made huge progress now. And we've got such an active membership base. And yeah, I think, things are growing really well.
Yeah, there's too many mistakes of the Labour Party to list, so we won't start going into that. You've come up at a time as well when there are a lot of fledgling parties. I'm always chatting to the guys at Breakthrough. I've done a lot of work for them, trying to get them recognition. There's various other parties sort of coming up as well. I mean, you're part of. Now, please correct my phrasing on this. Is it a coalition of left-wing parties, or an agreement, or what's going on? Because you're doing something with other parties, aren't you?
At the moment, where the sort of smaller left parties are having conversations in a body that we're calling a progressive alliance of the left, just to try and ensure that if there's a good candidate standing, we don't run against each other. We're trying to build a mechanism, sort of a memorandum of understanding between ourselves. That means that if Breakthrough, I mean, for us it's different, right? Because we're not, like I said to you off air, we're not really a pre or post Corbyn party. We're a democratic socialist, but we have a different agenda as well, which is regional inequality. We're not trying to do like Corbynism again. Of course, I was fought and campaigned for Jeremy Corbyn, but I look at the UK now and I think that the main agenda for the left has to be decentralization and regionalism and municipal socialism and these sorts of tendencies. So that's a long way of me saying, yeah, we're not going to stand any candidates in the South. So we don't actually need to, we don't actually need to have any sort of discussions in the Progressive Alliance of the Left about running in southern constituencies. Although nonetheless, when it comes to constituencies in the North, we would have to have those conversations. And for any our conditions are, they're obvious, they're simple. We'll support a good candidate if a candidate from a left-wing party has roughly the same policy platform as us, and that candidate is willing to support a referendum on an independent north of England. We are happy to support that candidate. And by support a referendum, I do not mean vote yes. I mean just vote for there to be a referendum. That is the sort of conditions of our support. We are the Northern Independence Party after all. And it's very fruitful conversations are happening. Yeah.
And that's how it's done, Labour, Greens and the SNP. Just to wrap up, obviously there are various elections happening next year. I mean, is there a goal for next year? Is it that you aim to field candidates? Are you thinking bigger that you'd like councillors? What's 2022 hopefully will be the year that you really cement yourselves. What's the goal? What are you hoping to achieve next year?
Well, we're beginning our process of selecting councillors. We'll do an analysis using we have a paid member of staff. That's how big we've grown now. So our political strategist is looking through all the different constituencies. We'll look together through as the NEC and the different committees of the party. We'll look through and we'll hopefully have some candidates running for council seats where we stand a good chance of winning. We're also in a lot of conversations with people that I can't go into so much around Northern Independence Party and potentially looking for new political homes. So yeah, there's a lot of things coming that I can't quite reveal yet, but but we'll see. But yeah, obviously, yeah, and then we plan to stand. I want to stand in Sheffield. I always say that, Sheffield, don't mind about, in Sedgefield, which is a constituency in the northeast, made famous for being Tony Blair's constituency. It's also where my dad's family's from. And in my day job, I'm a Middle East specialist. So I really want to stand in the constituency of a man who's responsible for destroying the region I study every day. So yeah, we're looking forward to some elections coming up and building the party further.
It all sounds really, really good. And just on a personal note, I mean, how have you found it personally heading up a political party? Because I mean, it's no mean feat. I get exhausted just writing about politics, let alone actually being in the mire of it. I mean, how was this? I hate X Factor language, but how's this journey been for you personally, leading a political party now? It's a hell of an undertaking.
Yeah, when it started, it was just a jokey Twitter account, and then it got rapidly serious. So it wasn't that I set out thinking I am going to lead a political party. I started a joke Twitter account, and then it suddenly gradually, then very rapidly became a political party. So I've gotten a bit used to it over time. I don't mind speaking about Northern inequality. Like, I always speak about it all the time to anyone who listens. So that bit's not challenging. I mean, I do have a difficult, I'm on strike now. I'm a university lecturer and I'm on strike now for 3 days. So I've got 3 days I can devote to it. But luckily the party we have a very active volunteer base, so we try as best as we can to spread everything out. So I used to be heavily involved in running the Twitter, but I've just had to step back from that. And now we've got an excellent newly elected comms team who all run the Twitter account. So my main job, the only way we can cope with it is a kind of division of labor. So I do, interviews and speeches, and I'm part of the NEC, and I'm like interested in the overall political direction of the party. We have an excellent chair who's, the chair of the party is the boss of the party. She's really the manager. So she's actually the one, if you want to talk about the difficult job, she's the one who's doing all the really difficult stuff. Whereas I just chat to you, it's not that hard. I just do interviews and stuff.
Look, well, you're very good at it, clearly. So, you're in the right role, Philip. Look, I mean, it's been lovely to speak to you. Finally, actually, I've been obviously watching proceedings of the Northern Independence Party since you first launched, and it's really good to speak to you. You're great public face for it. So, and I do hope the Twitter thing gets sorted out. It's absolutely ridiculous. Look, Philip, we'll have to do this again sometime. But for the minute, Philip, thank you so much for speaking to the Canary. It's really appreciated.
Great to speak to you as well. Thank you.